Hello, guys. Tonight is April 30th, probably end of the Skype era, but we'll figure something out later. Now we have a pretty important topic to talk about, and uh, I have to make a small disclaimer that our personal opinions and the position more liberal on the matter of immigration and deportations and everything, because I'm in this particular case as liberal as you are probably on the particular case. So we have to put aside right now our personal inclinations and are trying to analyze the matter of Trump policy, prospective policy, and whatever was already done from the position of the state security. Let's analyze that from like important thing, because that is probably going to be impartial analysis. Because there are certain things for state security as the security of the border that are very important. And probably in the security of the state, it's one of the most important part, security of the border of the state. I have to tell you in the beginning that I was born in Soviet Union, as you know, and in Soviet Union, security of the border is a jurisdiction of Federal Security Service, formerly known as KGB. So border troops, as they are protecting the border, or used to protect the border of Soviet Union, now they're protecting border of Russian Federation. They are in direct, they are subordinate to Federal Security Service, FSB, formerly known as KGB, and that's a very serious force. And we used to have on the border not just physical fences and wires like strong like surveillance capabilities, but also we have such a device known as a control line. And line was like about 2, maybe 3 kilometers wide. So anytime anything, including animals, is crossing the border, so immediately the signal comes to certain border post, and they send a patrol, special patrol, to find out what it is. Is it real person crossing on one way or the other way, or it's an animal? And that was a pretty serious like undertaking and a pretty serious matter to protect the border. So the troops were very serious troops, and they really could use guns for protecting the border. But after the Soviet Union, the system became more relaxed. But still, the state, as Soviet Union and now Russia, consider that border protection is a very important matter.
Okay. Well, this isn't Russia, right?
Exactly.
In America, we have due process, we have an immigration court system, and we have a entire way. We have a predetermined, um, pre-established system in order to deal with migrants and.
I'm not talking about
Yeah,
dealing with migrants. I'm talking about crossing the border illegally.
that's great.
Just the border.
Surprising.
That was a little
Yeah.
introduction to the
So
matter.
border. So on that, if you want to talk about Trump's performance on border encounters, they have been down. Trump has managed to get border encounters down, even though they were already on getting down at the end of Biden's term. But Trump accelerated them by just being Trump and funding or increasing resources to the border security.
Do you think? Can I ask you a question first, David? Do you think that closing the border was not a justified measure?
When? In COVID?
No, now when Trump came to the power.
No, it's not justified.
But don't you think that he was elected by the promise to close the border?
I think he has to follow the law, and he has to go to Congress. He can run on whatever he wants. He can run to, deport everyone. But you have to go to Congress.
We're not talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving an example. I'm giving an example. You could run on whatever you want, but the fact is, you have to go to Congress in order to pass a law to close the border. You do not have the power as the president to immediately shut it down.
Because on matter of national emergency, he can declare national emergency.
No, you can't declare. You can't just declare it on your own. You have to go to the Congress.
It's not true.
It is
President has the right to declare
no,
national
he doesn't.
emergency.
Because
does.
otherwise everything fails. If one person has the power to declare national emergency and then have special rights based on that national emergency, then you don't have a democracy. Then you
One
have a
second.
dictatorship.
One
So
second.
what the system
One
is that you go to
second.
Congress and then
If
you
you would
ask.
be right, all those cases will already be decided in favor of migrants, but it's not the
No,
case.
it's not true. Because
What do
they're
you
not
mean? We
getting
have court system.
because they're not getting a process.
We
They're just
have
avoiding them without a
already
process.
lot of things in the court system considering border crossings and deportations. So even if temporarily some executive orders in part were blocked, then blocked was lifted on number of his executive orders considering border. Right now I'm talking about border crossings. Okay. I'm not talking about deportations yet. We're going to talk about that. I'm just first, let's concentrate on the border policies. Trump was able to declare using Title 42 in COVID, closing the border effectively because it was a national emergency.
That was permitted because it was understood by the federal bureaucracies, by multiple federal bureaucracies, that it was an actual national emergency, and Congress said it's a national emergency.
Bureaucracies, David.
No, dead. And also Congress said it's a national emergency. Code is a national emergency.
Title 42 is executive thing. It's not Congress thing.
It's an executive thing, but who do you think holds the power to declare a national emergency? Not who do you want to. Who do you think?
The president has the right to declare a national emergency. He's the head of executive branch. Executive branch has a right to declare national emergency.
No, executive branch has a right to carry out the law as dictated by Congress.
That's not considering everything, David.
Right.
Certain things. In budget matter, yes. In security of the state, the president has the right to declare national security emergency.
I'm sorry.
I think so. Otherwise, it would be already blocked by Supreme Court, but it was not.
We can declare a national emergency in the U.S. government. Boom, boom, boom.
I'm going to sing something meanwhile.
Good. Sing your heart out. So, president can declare for disaster, like natural disasters. They could declare a national emergency, but Congress has to actually declare like a national emergency based on something that's not like an immediate threat, like immigration. That's not like you're not having like a tsunami of immigrants running over the country.
So what's your source?
Government websites like House.gov.
So how could Trump declare by executive order national emergency in economy, national emergency in immigration, national emergency on the border, if that would be unconstitutional? That would be blocked by Supreme Court already, because there were a lot of claims already that something he's doing is infringement on legislative power, but it was not blocked.
There was a 9-0 ruling by the Supreme Court, if you heard, on not related. Yes, it's not directly on the border, but it was on the deportation of Abrigo Garcia, and
that's only one case, right?
That's one case, but it's precedent. So if you have, and Trump is precedent for future cases where if you suspect someone of being a criminal, you have to give them due process and not just send them to a foreign country.
Oh, that's true. I'm not talking about that yet.
But no, I'm not. Hold on, let me make my point. That proved because Trump administration decided to do nothing, it proves that Trump does not care when a court rules against him, and courts have ruled against him, and courts have said this is unconstitutional. You have to stop immediately.
He was on the way there. The plane has already left the United States with him.
Yeah, but okay, the Supreme Court said you have to get him back. It doesn't matter.
The United States
has the ability to get him back, and they're not getting him back. By orders of the Supreme Court, the president had to go get Abrigo Garcia. The Trump administration had to go facilitate the retrieval of Abrigo Garcia, and they did not.
I'm not sure that
there's no indication they tried.
I think they are arguing that decision right now, and they
already ruled. They already ruled. I'm sorry, Dan. They already ruled 9-0.
But they found a loophole how can avoid the execution of that decision of Supreme Court. I heard the Attorney General Pam Bondi. She said that it's not possible because he's a member of terrorist organization. I'm not.
But you
talking
have to have a due process. You can't just say he's a member of a terrorist organization and deport him.
They had it
What
before.
precedent does that
They
say?
had that due process before for Garcia.
No. Okay. What you're thinking
It
is
was common
that they had
knowledge that he was a member of a gang. And
You're
so
wrong, dude. In 2018, there was a court case which said a relative of Rodrigo Garcia was affiliated with MS-13. That is nowhere near enough evidence to say this guy is a terrorist and we have to send him away to a country forever to a point where we cannot retrieve him.
No problem.
Right?
No problem. Listen.
Okay.
But I heard the president of Salvador here. He was here, and he was saying that no, he cannot return that guy to the United States.
Wait, you're saying the president of El Salvador doesn't have control over his own prison system, which he instated? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
He said that he is a terrorist and he cannot return terrorists to the United States. I heard him personally. But okay, even if you're right 100%, let assume that you're right.
Okay.
Let's assume. I'm
There's
not
no
talking
assuming,
about. I'm not talking about at that particular case of Garcia. It's very controversial. It's not that simple. But let's say you're right in this. I want to have our discussion on the general matter. That do you think that president has the right to execute the will of people who voted for him and made him a president?
So, first of all, you're presuming that the will of the people who voted him for president is to commit mass deportations. You, who voted for Trump, said that you do not want mass deportations.
You're right.
So now you're inferring that just because... No, hold on. Now you're inferring that everybody who voted for Donald Trump's will was exactly aligned with his. And
I'm not saying this.
Yeah, but then you can't say his actions are the will of the people.
They do polling even now. David, they did polls now. And according to those polls, that's independent polls, not Republican, not Democratic polls. So they did polls now. They're not approving him of economy. They're not approving a lot of things. But for immigration and deportation, majority of people they asked said yes. That's why we voted for Donald Trump.
I saw a CBS poll that said 51% against. So, well, whatever the polls are, you can't infer the will. You can't say the president is carrying out the will of the people. Because then you're talking like King Louis XIV, who said, "I am the state." You know, you can't say
me. Right.
Yeah. You can't say you're carrying out the will of the people because now you're sounding like a dictator, and you are being a dictator when you say, "I have the right to exercise what I was voted in for." Hello, no, and the people who voted for you definitely don't understand the law well enough to be able to make that ruling.
That's true. Now. Do you agree that president has the right to close the border in case of national emergency?
If a national emergency is declared through the due process that is outlined in the Constitution, then, and the law is passed by Congress in the past, then yes, he should be allowed to, like he did in COVID. But COVID ended. Well, the pandemic ended, effectively. Which is why the national emergency measures had to be stopped. So to redeclare national emergency when the statistics suggest that immigration problems are not nearly as bad as it was during COVID, as it was in the immediate aftermath of COVID, there's nothing to suggest that we are in a national emergency. And
no, I had in New York City school closing because they were supposed to give shelter to migrants. We had that in Avenue P and Bedford.
You know that
big school. They closed the school because they needed to give shelter.
You know that you just regurgitated like every Fox News talking point ever.
It's not Fox News. It's Eric Adams, mayor of the city.
Yeah. Let me explain to you what happened there. It was not. They didn't close the school for immigrants to stay there. They used the gym of that school as a point where immigrants could like register and go to other places. They weren't like, come sleep in our auditorium. No,
David.
Oh my God, school is closed for this day.
David.
Oh no.
David.
What the fuck? Dude, okay, now we're moving the goalpost. Now, first of all, you made it sound like they closed the school so immigrants could sleep at night there. And then when I clarified to you that's not what was happening, like, people go to schools to vote all the time. On November 5th, they closed schools so you could go into a school and vote for who you want in your city and as a president and as your senator and as your representative.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you.
It's
I got you.
documents.
I got your
got it.
point. I got your point. I got your point. Listen, let me ask you then. Imagine they're going to open shelter for migrants next to your house. What you gonna say?
First of all, they don't build. Sometimes they do, but usually they don't build housing directly next to a migrant shelter. And if they do, then I'm probably gonna.
That's other way around. That's already houses there, and then they build their shelter. That's what they do.
That's true. In New York
Yeah,
City,
that's
they
what
don't do that. Maybe in somewhere else where they have like shelter cities, in like Texas and Oklahoma and
New
Arizona
York
and New
City is
Mexico.
shelter city, by the way. LA, Chicago, shelter city.
Yes.
Seattle, I think. San Francisco is a shelter, I think.
Um,
Oh, yeah, by the way, that's my next question.
Right.
Do you approve, what do you think about the authority of federal authority and the state authority? Whose authority on matter of immigration should be more important?
Federal for state authority. That depends. If the states decide to pass an amendment of the Constitution to allow the
State constitution.
to allow, well, no, states have to agree, like a majority of states, I believe, in order for an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to be passed, a majority of states need to agree. So if the states use their power collectively to agree to give powers to the federal government to handle immigration or have
It's already handled
priority
by now.
over the
by
states.
now, it's by default federal government.
Yeah, but if the states hand their power that they do have, the remaining power to the federal government, then the federal government should have that power. But right now, the way it is not necessarily bad. I don't see a reason that we should change the dynamic of power.
We don't have to. I'm saying state says that this city is a city of refuge. Okay. For example, that Trump right now by executive order won a list of those cities which are the city of refuge.
You could look it up. I mean, it's a
recent executive order. Okay, one second.
Okay.
It's a recent let me finish the question now. Yeah. Look, the problem is like that. In certain states, like in LA and Chicago, for example, there are certain universities that give illegal immigrants who live in this city certain discounts for state education, for example, but for state universities. But if citizens of United States come from out of state, they don't give them that discount because he's not in the state. I didn't finish yet. Let me list the number of issues. This is first. Second, they're trying to find out sometimes when courts dealing with illegals in certain cities like Chicago or LA. That I'm citing Wall Street Journal, for example. Yeah, so sometimes they're dealing with Chicago and LA cases, and they see that they give more lenient sentences to illegals comparing to United States citizens. That case happens. Those cases are happening sometimes. Sometimes. I'm not saying it's a rule, and it's not that like every time it's happening, but they're inclined to give more. Sometimes they're inclined to give more lenient sentences to illegals comparing to United States citizens. That happens sometimes. So sometimes they favor illegals more than United States citizens. That's the thing Trump would like to prevent. That's why he's creating certain list of those cities to do more research, targeted research on the practices considering illegals. Because sometimes they contradict federal laws and federal approach toward immigration.
First of all, sometimes if it happens sometimes and there's no direct correlation and there's no evidence of a direct correlation and there's certainly no evidence of direct causation, then you can't say it's anything more than coincidence that sometimes illegal immigrants might get more lenient sentences. Like if an illegal immigrant is going 40 and a 30 versus a white guy who goes 70 and a 40, yeah, obviously the immigrant is going to get a more lenient ruling, right? So to say, but it's the same crime, it's speeding. How could they get a more lenient sentence? You see how you could twist the story to make it however you want? They're not like reviewing their case and be like, oh, this guy's illegal, high-level illegals. I'm going to make this guy have a lenient sentence. Like, no. The courts follow the procedure. They have a book, and the book says listen, this is the minimum sentence. Use your own judgment to determine if based on the situation itself, not on the person, because justice is blind, right? As the founding fathers intended, that to determine the correct outcome for the case. Now, in the case of of universities giving discounts to illegal immigrants, no, they give discounts to foreigners, and they do not ask if they are legal or illegal. Or that's the case for most universities.
So they give discount to foreigners, but don't give discounts to legal resident citizens of the United States. That Trump considered inappropriate, though, because the United States citizens should have a precedence.
Okay, well, he can consider whatever he wants, but it's not just because you don't like it doesn't make it fraud, and it doesn't make it illegal.
But it's not fair.
It's not fair.
No, hold on, David. David, this is not a joke.
You have to look at the perspective of the colonies
United States
and understand
should
why
be first,
they're giving
right,
discount.
David? United States citizens should be first, right, in getting government help. It's state university. It's not private. In private university, you can do whatever you want if you're not taking federal money. The second you take federal money, you understand that you work with federal government, and federal government would like United States citizens have precedence over anybody else. We're in United States of America. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
I don't want to hear that point made by Trump, who slashes welfare and slashes support for his legal residents as well, and who has also deported many legal citizens in the crossfire of his mass deportation.
Residents, you're saying, not citizens.
No, literal citizens. There were 3 here. There's an article from BBC News which says 3 U.S. citizen children were deported to Honduras. One of them was cancer.
Oh, that's obvious mistake. It's the fault of the system. No, that is unacceptable. No, hold on. That is unacceptable. Listen, I'm not talking about crazy cases that is unacceptable and against the law. I'm talking about something that is in framework of the law. Listen, let me ask you frankly, do you support, straight answer please, do you support open borders of the United States?
It's not a yes or no question. I don't support I don't support let everyone in. Obviously there needs to be a process. There needs to be there needs to be background check. There needs to be all this stuff. I don't support just anybody coming in. But at the same time, I think immigration is fundamentally good. I think we need to invest a lot more resources into our immigration process, and I think we need to do a reform of the system in a way that will benefit the most people and be efficient while being fair. That, and I want to remove IRA.
What?
IRA is a policy passed by Bill Clinton, which basically said if you're an illegal immigrant and you leave the country, you cannot come back for 3 years or 10 years or maybe for a lifetime. That, in theory, might be good, but then you realize that now you're just keeping illegal immigrants here because they don't want to leave the country now. They're going to be blocked. They can't spend 10 years in Venezuela. They don't have that kind of time. So you're encouraging illegal immigrants to stay in the United States. Before Bill Clinton, we had a relatively stable rate of immigration, around 5 million illegal immigrants in the country at any given time, because illegal immigrants would come up for the harvesting season, work, and then come back to their country with the money, right?
No, that's talking Mexico. Yeah. That's Mexico. Then.
That was fine. That was the system we had. And then Bill Clinton passed IRA, and then suddenly people decided, well, I'm just going to stay here. I have to stay here because otherwise I can't come back for 10 years, And that's why I just want to remove IRA. And it also made it so that if you committed petty theft as an illegal immigrant, you could be deported for a lifetime, basically.
Okay, I got you. That's answer. I support the thing. Whatever you said right now, I'm on the same page with you. Now, another question. Do you believe government has the right to deport illegals with criminal records?
That depends. Well, first of all, yes, according to IRA, which expanded on the crimes that the government is allowed to deport illegal immigrants for, if I'm saying following purely by the rule of law, then yeah, they can pretty much deport. They can deport illegals for pretty much any crime. What I think it should be is if an illegal immigrant commits petty theft, and let's say they steal $50 worth of stuff, for whatever reason. It could be to go smoke crack or to be feed their children, whatever it is. That should not stay. That should be on the record, but it shouldn't mean that you get deported for 10 years, and you can't come back and whatever, right? And that also separates adults who have entrenched themselves into American society with their children, right? And that happens like very often. So, I think we should maybe not deport illegal immigrants for like jaywalking or like some like or speeding.
Jumping MTA like a train, jumping into not paying the fare.
Yeah, that's like $2.50, dude. That's like below petty theft. I don't think you could get any more petty than that. Like I don't think it could get any less significant.
So, in your opinion, from what kind of a crime you can really deport the person?
I think any crime,
Violent crime.
any crime above like a misdemeanor, I think should be a violent crime. Of course, if you're assaulting someone, you should be deported no matter what. I fully support illegal immigrants with violent crime on their record being deported. That being said, if they're in the country already for like 20 years and they haven't committed another incident, then whatever. But yeah, generally I support like deporting legal immigrants for serious crimes and violent crimes and things like that.
So when the administration, getting back to our administration, lovely. So when our administration is saying that we're deporting everybody with criminal records, in basic we agree.
No.
Why not?
Well, what do you mean by in basic we agree?
So
Like,
criminal,
are they
I
allowed to
understand
do
that
it?
there's a difference between
That's what you're saying?
crime and misdemeanor. But I'm saying everybody with criminal records, like real crimes they committed. We agree that administration has the right to deport those people.
Yeah, but we've been deporting them for the last 5 administrations, so nothing changed except that he's now also doing stuff that he's not allowed to do. Nobody's complaining that he's deporting people who are like committing murder. Like that's not the issue that Democrats are bringing up. The issue that Democrats are bringing up is that a lot of people are being deported without any due process, which has never been seen before. Well, I'm sure it has on like some occasions, but never on this scale, right? Everyone has to have a due process, and now when courts are telling Trump repeatedly, you have to have due process, you have to bring these X people back, you have to do this and you have to do that, and he is just ignoring it and saying, no, I don't want to do it, I'm not following you, whatever, and just continuing with whatever he wants. Now I have to ask you a question. At what point do we understand that the president has become effectively a dictator in this right? At what point can we accept, okay, Trump is ignoring the courts, Trump no longer cares, he's no longer asking Congress for permission about funding, which he should be. He can't choose what to fund and what not to fund. At what point do we consider him a dictator?
Hold on.
At what point do we realize that this is what the founding fathers were warning against?
I'll answer on this. But before that, little correction on this. He is trying to go into framework of budget. The budget is decided by Congress. And inside that already enacted parts of budget that are right now in force, he can move certain allocations from one article to another article in a framework of already approved budget. He has that right.
So what Congress says when they pass a spending bill is you have to spend this amount of money on these specific things regarding, let's say Ukraine, for example. Let's say you have to spend $20 billion on missile defense for Ukraine. So you could do whatever missile defense system you want. You can get them a missile defense system from the 80s if you wanted to, but you have to spend it on missile defense.
Yeah.
What Trump is doing is saying, I'm not going to spend that money at all. I'm just going to stop spending that money. I'm not going to do anything with it.
I think to stop financing at certain point is in his right.
No, it's not.
Yes. Depends. Situation. It's a situation which is flowing. It's changing. So because of that, president has the authority inside already approved budget to withhold certain amounts and to reallocate certain amounts inside Pentagon expenditures. So if Pentagon, for example, has a budget of $800 $80 billion a year, like previous one for 2024. In this framework, they have certain allocations. That goes for pensions for military, that goes for rearmament, this is go for expanding of military bases, that's for procurement of weaponry and this and that. So in those allocations, he can move money around.
You,
I think that's the case.
No,
in
the law. Okay,
federal government, they can.
No. So basically, whatever the budget the Pentagon has, and what the Pentagon chooses to do with their money that they're allocated, is what is their prerogative, because that is money that they're allowed to choose what they want to do with. When it comes to, let's go back to the spending on Ukraine, it's not up to anybody, except Congress, what happens with that money. It is the only thing the president could do is enforce it. You cannot say no. You cannot say, I'm going to reallocate it. He cannot say, I'm going to let the Pentagon spend on whenever they want. He has to spend it on exactly what the bill says, because it is a law. It is a spending law. The law says we have to spend this amount of money on this specific thing from, let's say, like April to May or whatever, right? That is...
You think president has no authority to freeze certain amount till like for certain reasons?
No,
if it would be the case, then
branch.
Congress should call them in contempt, call them for impeachment procedure, but it's not happening. Why do you think it's not happening?
It's a conservative majority.
Ah.
Same thing with the Supreme Court, even though they stopped him on a few things. Same thing with
conservative
the House.
Doesn't mean Republican.
Yeah,
in the House,
three
it
of
is
them
Republican. You're
okay,
right. And Senate.
Yeah,
also.
I know what the difference between conservative in court and conservative in politics.
And Republican.
However, the people, the conservatives in the Supreme Court are also politically conservative. So I mean, like three of them are appointed by Trump.
I have to argue not necessarily, and sometimes conservative judges in Supreme Court voting with liberal judges in Supreme Court for certain
that's
matters.
When Trump does something like so obviously unconstitutional.
It's not about even Trump. It's about general thing. Sometimes they voting not with the partisan lines and American policy.
But most of the time they do. Like
again,
the January 6th debate,
it's not about Republicans or Democrats. I'm sorry, but it's not true. It's about, in Supreme Court, it's about how you interpret the law. Close to letter or close to spirit. That's what liberal judge and conservative judge means.
I know what it means, Dad. I understand, but you're talking about the theory. Yes, they're liberal and conservative in that sense, but they're also liberal and conservative politically. They are partisan objectively.
Like, when every time they go to appoint another judge to Supreme Court, there are the confirmation hearing in Senate, right? Mm-hmm. And I heard them answering questions, and some liberal judges were answering like Republican would answer, and some conservative were answering like liberal, like Democrat would answer. And that was not only for confirmation purposes, it's because they were guaranteed confirmation for certain political reasons. They were answering the inner self, what they really think. So it's not necessarily conservative judges Republican and liberal judges Democrat. Not necessarily. In certain matters, they are not on partisan lines.
Yes, the certain matters where they are not on partisan lines are matters where it is so crystal clear of an answer that they cannot justify ruling any other way. Okay. And it has happened on both sides, and that's what we saw with Rodrigo Garcia.
Okay, I agree.
When it came to like something like January 6th hearing in the Supreme Court, the conservative judges justified Trump not going to prison by saying that the president is not an officer of the government.
Not only that, they were saying he was a head of the government. Head of the government cannot go into
head of the government could go try to overthrow the government. Come on.
Right. He is a head of the government. How could he overthrow the government?
Dad, what?
It's a legal question. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's just a legal question.
So you're saying Hitler didn't overthrow Germany even though, like, as the chancellor, he didn't overthrow Germany. He didn't take dictatorial powers. He couldn't have done anything illegal because he was the chancellor.
Very, very thin line. I wouldn't compare those cases, though.
It's like the exact same thing, though. I'm saying, like, there's literally almost no difference between the example I just provided and what the Supreme Court just said. Like, it is ridiculous to say that January 6th was not an insurrection that would
And also
disqualify
immunity.
Trump from running for
Also,
president.
on the matter of immunity, I would agree with you. They gave him like almost forever immunity while he's president, whatever he does. Listen, we're not talking. Our topic is let's go back to our main thing because it will never stop. We have certain things that are funny, really funny, but again, I cannot say that President Trump is desecrating the Constitution of the United States.
Why not?
I'm saying that it's open for interpretations. Let Supreme Court interpret certain matters. I mean, in separation of powers, not everything crystal clear. Some of the things are murky. Some of that's constitution. It's not that easy to interpret it right away. So sometimes we need Supreme Court to clarify matters. It's not a big deal.
But
We'll
what
see.
happens when the president just ignores the Supreme Court? This is like Andrew Jackson stuff.
We have a constitutional crisis then.
Yay! Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome.
then we have a constitutional
So we're
crisis.
in a-
I
you
don't
admit
think
we're
we're
in a
there yet.
constitutional crisis.
I don't think we're there yet. I don't think so.
I
I
literally just said we're just not gonna enforce what the Supreme Court ruled unanimously on.
for Garcia, you're saying?
Yeah, he just said we're not gonna do it.
Because they can't.
No,
So
it's not.
he's already in El Salvador.
First of all, the
Okay.
ruling is not if you can. The ruling is do it. So if the Supreme Court rules to do something, it's not up to you. That is the law now, and you have to go do it, right? And I assure you, with the relationship that Trump and who's the president of El Salvador again?
Nabor, I think Nabor.
Whoever it is. The relationship they have is not one where it would be impossible to get Abrigo Garcia back. Like it is, so it's ridiculous to say, "Oh, we can't get him back," because it's more like it's pretty clearly
It's more like
likely-
he's not alive anymore. That's what I'm thinking, by the way. Let me
Really?
state my opinion. Nobody, even American congressmen who went to check up for him, they were not presented with him. They didn't see him alive, and the government of Salvador didn't give them any proof that he is still alive. And you have to remember that in that case that you were citing also 2018, when his relatives were members of MS-13,
allegedly.
then it was said that he has powerful enemies in El Salvador. That's why he cannot go back. And those enemies from MS-13 in El Salvador of his, they are in the same that higher security prison that he was deported to. So we're not sure he's alive.
Then the Trump administration has to say that they cannot continue to dodge the orders of the Supreme Court.
They might not.
So what
Right,
we
you're
do
right.
have,
You're right.
yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's a matter need to be clarified. Everything should be clear, and society should know. American people should know what happened and how those. It should be beyond any reasonable doubt that president obey the Constitution and execute decisions of Supreme Court. I agree with you because that's like a holy cow. You cannot touch that. If Supreme Court ruled, you have to do what Supreme Court
So
said.
you do
Except
agree
it's
that-
not possible. Sometimes that's what I'm thinking.
yeah, but then if you don't communicate that, then you're still causing a constitutional crisis. So we have to admit that even excluding all the lower courts who said stop, like immediately, even if we just take into account the Supreme Court ruling, we have to admit that we have a constitutional crisis, right? And so, are we at the point yet where we could say Trump is now effectively a dictator?
No, not yet. Not
He doesn't follow the
Not
Supreme
yet.
Court ruling.
Not
He
yet.
doesn't have to go to Congress for anything
One
because he
case-
just completely circumvented their power.
one case. He does. He's substituting Congress on a matter of national emergency that he's declaring. Whatever you're saying right now that only Congress can declare emergency, I don't believe it's true. And it requires clarifications. We'll look into it.
Okay.
For next stream, probably we're gonna have more like detailed answers because it's not that simple matter. I'm sure there's certain room for like maneuver for president to declare emergency himself. But the thing is like that. One case of Garcia cannot be indicator of he's a dictator or not.
Hmm.
It's too early. It's too early to say such a. It's a pretty harsh thing. I think he has respect for American Constitution, for Supreme Court. I do believe that president has respect for American institutes of power and for separation of powers. And he does work with Congress, by the way, exceptionally on a budget. Right now, they're preparing very serious, like one, how the Trump call it, a beautiful deal that's going to take care of everything right away, border tax cuts and everything else. One bill that is going to take care of everything. And he works with Congress on this, with Congress Republicans on this. So he does communicate to Congress. It's not like he's ignoring Congress. He
Oh, no,
works
he
with
is.
Senate, work with House.
No, he's not ignoring Congress. Congress is not really challenging him yet. He's just doing things that he's not allowed to do without permission of Congress. That's the thing. He's circumventing the power of Congress. It doesn't matter what Congress feels about it. He's just circumventing their power. So
Question is, how much Constitution allows him to do it?
Not at all. You can't circumvent the power of Congress.
Depends on the context and how you present it, and what I mean. Those are questions for constitutional attorney. I'm not the one. I believe you're also not the one. If that would be the case, Supreme Court would be screaming and yelling all the way, but it's not happening. It's not happening. It's happening only
the
on the
courts
case of
have been yelling
Garcia.
all the way the whole time. It's only now the Supreme Court is starting to notice, like, yeah, okay, we have to do something about it. The lower courts, since day like 5, have been yelling at Trump, stop, you have to stop. Like, have been ruling against him, like, you have to stop immediately now.
No, they blocking orders. When the order is blocked, any executive order, it's not executed. And then it goes.
No, they do execute it.
No, when they block
did.
partially, hold on. When any federal judge blocking any part of Trump executive order, that part is not executed. They wait for the next,
especially like we saw with funding. Circuit. We saw with funding that he just completely ignored it. He had multiple court rulings against his funding cuts, executive orders, and he just continued to do it. And to this day, like, it doesn't matter to him. The lower courts cannot do anything to stop him, and we don't even know if the Supreme Court can do anything to stop him at this point, right? So the judicial system is out the window. He uses the DOJ to persecute his political opponents at this point. Like, it's no longer a matter of if the judicial system can help. And he's circumventing Congress, the power of Congress, no matter how Congress feels about it. He is. I just want to close out on a finishing message. Do you agree that this would never have even been a conceived as a problem if we elected Kamala Harris?
We would have a different problem. They also do political hunt. They did that on his first term also. They used the power that they had to do absolutely not appropriate impeachment procedures for nothing. They did witch hunt. They sabotage a lot of his foreign activities. They were doing terrible things. By the way,
which one of his impeachments were unjust? Tell me.
Oh, both.
Okay, so the first one was because he obstructed the congressional investigation into the Zelensky meeting with Trump, where he tried to get.
One. It was
no, that was the first one. The second one was January 6th.
No, during his first term was already 2. I'm sorry.
No, so his first impeachment happened in 2018, I think, or 2019, and his second impeachment happened after Biden already took office. So they impeached him after he left office.
Okay, so for Zelensky, it's too big topic to discuss right now. I think we should close on this. Right. But no, both of them were absolutely not right and not justified. It was clearly political stunt. We'll talk next time when we're going to talk about that. It's a big thing. But that, because president has the power to take, if he has info that the active vice president on a duty during his term was involved in corruption scheme, he has the right to get from the president of the country where he was involved with those schemes all documents related.
You don't have a right to blackmail. I'm sorry. Nobody has.
President has the right to blackmail any other government.
No, he doesn't. That's
the problem. Yes, he does.
Whatever not only did he not have a right to
national security,
not only did he not have a right to blackmail,
the United States has the right to do whatever it takes to get the security of the state.
The security of the state. You're confusing
vice president. You have vice president of the country who was corrupted according to info he had.
How did he get the info?
From different people in Ukraine. Oh, didn't you know that? I'm sorry. Didn't you know that Chief Attorney General of Ukraine was fired under Biden request? Why? Because he was investigating his son, Hunter Biden, in that company that was working in Ukraine.
Yeah. The fact is, blackmail is illegal, no matter where, and the president is not above the law. That's not the worst part. The worst part was that Trump tried to stop Congress from investigating when they had every right to investigate. Congress had an investigative team out to figure out what happened. I'm sure you agree there's nothing wrong with that. And then Trump tried to block it unlawfully. And so he was rightfully impeached because he broke the law. Then,
Nah,
and so
it was a
January 6th,
political hunt. They wanted to do everything in power to just get rid of him, and they did what they wanted to do. So I'm sorry, all impeachments were not founded, but that's not our topic right now. His first term, I was witnessing whatever was going on, and that was not absolutely not appropriate. They were first blaming him, saying that he is a Russian spy, that he was colluding with Russia to become a president, that Russia paid for his election, do whatever. That was from Obama and Clinton, from 2016 even. They started the campaign and surveillance and this and that, and they blocking his initiatives. They were they're not letting him work as a president.
Yeah.
So now, after also during when he lost to Biden, next years after that, they were trying to take him out of political picture completely. That's absolutely not allowed. So now he's just punishing them for what they were doing to him before. I'm sorry. Let us go to that. We're not discussing that topic.
No,
I mean, it was so disgusting.
No, you don't do that.
Party,
you don't get to say we're not discussing it after stating your
disgusting.
narrative, and then you're like, no, we don't get to do that.
Democratic Party behaved so disgusting in this.
Oh.
They were so immersed in this garbage.
God
they became
forbid
the party
Democratic
of garbage.
Party tries to enforce the law.
That's why I quit Democratic Party. It's not the matter that we want to discuss right now.
No, you can't do that. You just discussed the whole thing. You said your whole narrative, and I can't respond.
You asked me why. I told you why. I'm not discussing.
But
that was your question.
I'm sorry. On false premises.
I was just answering your question. I would never go into it. So I'm saying different thing. I'm saying he is a president right now.
Okay.
Now he's not like he's trying to make people responsible for what they've done to him also.
There's no person this is the United States. You do not take revenge. You do not punish your political opponents. You do not do that.
Why didn't you tell that to people who were taking revenge from him during year after 2020? Why didn't you say that?
Wait. What revenge after 2020? What are you talking about? Go ahead.
I mean, they will have a lot of cases against him during all 4 years.
Yeah. Do you know why they had the cases against him? Because he committed an insurrection, because he committed fraud on multiple counts. Like, these are not made-up cases.
According
these are
to
his
your narrative, he did commit an insurrection. According to Mike, he didn't.
What narrative do you have that justifies the notion that he didn't commit an insurrection? All the evidence suggests that he committed an insurrection.
David, we're talking about immigration policies.
Okay, now we're talking about immigration policy. Okay, let's go back to immigration policy. Fine.
I think
now we're talking about immigration.
We said already everything on immigration policy.
So where are we going back to immigration for?
Huh?
And what are we going back to immigration for?
We're not going back. We were discussing that the purpose of that stream was to talk about immigration.
Yes, I agree. But we're talking. You just said we're not talking about.
So if we're done talking on this, then thank you very much, and we can come back to all big political discussion in second stream. If you want to discuss Trump in person and his relationship with Democratic Party and what they were doing to him, what he was doing to them, that can be a separate stream, not this one. But it's okay. It's fine. I'm really appreciate. We have different here. We have completely different points on immigration. I have certain things that I completely agree with you. That first of all, law supposed to be obeyed. Second, I think the president has the right to declare national emergency and close the border, and that you probably not agreeing on this. But and we agreed that people with criminal records government should be able to deport them, and that should be done. If there are a lot of people like that, I think on this we have agreement on. Yeah. And also, it doesn't matter right now whatever we think on what happened before. Now we have a president, we have a Congress, we have Supreme Court. Whatever how they're going to come to terms with each other. It's a very interesting picture, especially after 2026 midterms, when probably control of the House or Senate or both will switch to Democratic control. That's going to be completely different picture. So the president, knowing that it has only time till 2026, will have to move very fast. That, by the way, what he's saying all the way, that I have very little time. I have to do fast and aggressive, whatever I was elected to do. That's what he's saying, by the way. And also, I don't believe that he's doing this to remain in power more than 4 years. And like for dictator, you would say that he would be remaining in power indefinitely. I don't see that in Trump.
Well, no, you don't have to be an eternal, like, you don't have to be dictator till you die in order to be a dictator, necessarily.
But usually we see that.
Like, was Khrushchev not a dictator because he stepped down after?
He was not stepped. He was removed from the power, David.
Was he not a dictator because he didn't remain?
No, he was not a dictator at all. He was elected on the position by the Politburo. Khrushchev was elected, David. Khrushchev was elected to the position by the Politburo and removed from the position by decision of Politburo. If you're not familiar with the matter,
I understand how party politics works, but he's still a dictator. The people did not elect him.
No,
and he held absolute power.
It's not a dictatorship. Dictatorship is when you let us define then. Let's in the next stream we'll define dictatorship in more like clear terms. The people understand difference between person appointed by the consul to do certain things. I mean, in Roman term, Latin old term of dictator, you're right. But in modern political terms, you're not right. So I'm saying that dictator can be appointed by the consul like a Sulla in Rome. That's possible. And then like be in the execute powers like appointed top in the command. But it's not in modern times that word dictator has a completely different meaning the person who usurped power. Like usurpator, like a person who usurp power, like which was not given to him, but he grabbed it. That's a dictator in modern context. You see, that's the difference. In legal term of word dictator, in Roman law, it could be somebody who is appointed by the consul. But in Soviet Union, the consul was a Politburo, and he was elected by Politburo to be Secretary General of the Communist Party, and he became like legal head of state in that time in Soviet Union. So he was not a dictator per se. He was a legal head of state for that political system in Soviet Union, and he was removed from that position because Politburo decided that he is no longer fits. It was an oligarchy decision. Let's put it in Greek term, in term of the state in Greek. Oligarchy. Politburo was the head of that oligarchy, like group of people who were ruling the country, the huge country, one of the biggest country on earth. It was ruled by like 12, 13 people as a collective. After death of Stalin, it became more consul-ruled country, not one person ruled country. You see the difference? So it's very interesting. By the way, the Soviet period is a very interesting period to analyze after death of Stalin. All those like till Gorbachev, like 32 years till Gorbachev, it was very interesting period. Can be analyzed. We'll do that in one of the streams. We'll talk about that. It's interesting. So I don't believe Trump is a dictator. The bottom line of this. He's not behaving like, maybe a certain thing, it looks like it, but he's not really a dictator. He does have respect for American Constitution, for institutes of power, and he's working with Congress. He worked with Supreme Court. You'll see it. I think so. Anyway, thank you very much for your input. Even if we're arguing, we're still trying to establish the truth, which is a very hard thing to do because it depends on narrative and personal inclinations. That's one thing, but the truth is something another. Thank you very much. David Zadov is with me, and I hope next time also we'll have very, very productive discussion, but trying to stay on the topic and not deviate from it. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.